Christina Bobb has been at the eye of the storm on more than one occasion. She's written a new book called Defiant, Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the left's ongoing lawfare. Boy, you can say that again. She was also involved in the 2020 election and trying to right what many of us thought was a stolen election. Christina, welcome to The Truth.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Well, you and I first met while you were working at Mar-a-Lago and helping the president, I guess, lay the groundwork for the 2024 election. And kudos to you. I remember vividly that you were going to assemble a team of lawyers to be at the ready if you detected any election fraud or election engineering. Did the smoothness of 2024 surprise you, or did we miss stuff behind the scenes?
I think if you compare 2024 to 2020, the fact that they didn't have COVID, they didn't have the crazy lockdowns, they didn't have the excuse to issue, dictator-like executive orders at the state level. The variable of COVID not being there for 2024, I think, was incredibly helpful, and I think that was largely the difference maker. So I don't think any election will ever be smooth. There's always going to be gamesmanship and people trying to maneuver certain ways, and we certainly had that in 2024. But yeah, I'm really pleased that it worked out the way that it did.
Well, I was surprised. I've said on this show many times that I was waiting for some sort of a seminal event that would disrupt his election. I think in July the 13th, we came very close to that. But fortunately, literally dodged the bullet. But, President Trump said that make it too big to rig. And I thought to myself at the time, that's a pretty optimistic, maybe wishful thinking sort of a notion. Like so many outlandish comments that Trump makes, damned if it didn't turn out to be the truth.
Yeah, he was exactly right. And I think it was just so big. He had so much momentum that there was just nothing they could do about it. And I think not having the ability to lock things down, claiming, we're all going to die because of COVID, so we have to stop the election in the middle of the election. They couldn't make those claims this time around. And they just couldn't do anything about it.
So I don't know whether you agree with me or not, but as you know, I was very active in a lawsuit in Georgia against the Fulton Board of Elections. I worked on it with Bob Shealy and Charles Bundren and Preston Halliburton, not as a lawyer, but as a fundraiser and communications for 2.5 years. And we got a judge that ruled that we had made a prima facie case. He ordered the absentee ballots be unsealed. Nothing ever happened. He reversed himself on using standing as the grounds. And then the Georgia Supreme Court unanimously reversed his decision. That case is still pending, by the way, and the order still stands. I have zero expectation that anything will happen, and I don't see any value of it really, other than to prevent what happened in 2020 from ever recurring again. And there's a big piece of me that would like to see the reputations and the lives restored for people like Jeff Clark, John Eastman, Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, Sidney Powell. I mean, the devastation that these people were willing to wreck these people's lives is just mind-boggling to me.
It's awful.
It seemed to me that they couldn't allow the truth to come out lest they would be exposed. And do you think that it traces directly back to the deep state?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I guess it depends on what people are calling the deep state, but I would define the deep state as career bureaucrats that have embedded themselves into state, local, and federal government, working for a political party rather than truth and justice, or whatever their certain role is. But 100%, I think it's a liberal leaning kind of conspiracy, if you can call it that, to subvert the will of the American people. 100%.
Well, I definitely think it's a conspiracy. I don't know how anyone could argue that it's anything other than that, because we found out that Politico has received, I think it's right at $10 million. They've sold subscriptions for $75,000 to $100,000 to members of the federal government. If that's not a bribe, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, state-funded media.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in the vaccine cases, we learned that the FBI had paid Twitter $3.4 million to
Yeah.
censor or cancel people who spoke in opposition of the country, the government's narrative. And the New York Times has received millions of dollars in contracts. The Cox organization have contracts with the Department of Defense, according to one of the members of the family who sat for a 30-page interview with Vanity Fair. And so it's obvious now to me how they're able to get their story to be the official narrative on this stuff. They're on the take. I mean, it's just that simple, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's corporations working together to push a certain political narrative and political agenda to get their people into positions of power who will solidify their contracts and continue. I mean, it's basically just a money operation where you pay me, I pay you, you pay me, I pay you, where they just keep cycling the money amongst themselves to the detriment of normal everyday Americans.
So you define the deep state as career bureaucrats. What about Russia, and Tulsi Gabbard's revelations that it traces directly back to Clinton, Obama, Comey, Brennan, Clapper? I mean, Lisa Page and her lover.
Peter Strzok.
Yeah, Peter Strzok. Thank you. It's pretty serious stuff when you think about it.
Very serious stuff.
What they did was nothing but tried to affect a coup. And I would argue that in 2020, they did affect a coup.
They did. Well, they did it in 2016. I mean, if you look at what they charged Donald Trump with for January 6th, just the Jack Smith investigations, and I go into a lot of this in my book, and thank you, President Trump, for doing the forward. This is the official version of what actually happened. But if you look at what they charged him with in the Jack Smith January 6th case, they're saying Donald Trump lost the election. Now, I don't agree with that, but that's the claim. He lost the election, and he was trying to subvert the peaceful transition of power to the incoming administration. That's really the crux of the claims for the January 6th case. That is exactly what Obama did in 2016. Hillary Clinton had lost the election. Donald Trump was transitioning into power, and they created a fake narrative in order to subvert the incoming administration. So I expect all of them to be prosecuted.
You think they will actually get indictments and that they will stand trial?
Yes, I do. I think President Trump's legacy depends on it. I think it's important. He understands. I'm currently a criminal defendant in the state of Arizona right now. They're still coming after us.
I was getting to that.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Sure. And we have there's two ways to get rid of this abuse of power, right? The first way is the people who are abusing the system to stop and say, okay, we recognize that we went too far. We don't want to destroy our nation anymore. We're going to stop. We're going to stop abusing the system. And then we can all say, okay, thank God that's over, and move on. But that's not what they're doing. They're still coming after us. They're still prosecuting me. They're still prosecuting about 60 others, whether it's in Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Georgia. The Fani Willis case is still open. They're still coming after us. And so in order to ensure that we get to keep our rights, if they're not going to willfully lay down their arms and we all just agree to move forward, if they're not going to do that, the only way we can ensure that they don't completely crush our freedoms is to prosecute them for the crimes they're committing. We have to push back. And if we don't, I think we lose our freedoms. I think the president knows that. I think this administration knows that. We've heard that grand juries have been opened. And I expect to see indictments. Yeah.
I so hope you're right. Not because I'm a vengeful or mean person.
It's not about revenge.
I am just a patriot and want my children and grandchildren to be able to live in a free country like you and I have. And the things that these people have stooped to just set new lows in our system. And, the things that they've done are bad enough. The residual effect is what really concerns me. because every single bureaucrat in America, whether they're federal, state, or local, realize that they can literally get away with murder and attempted murder, i.e. JFK, i.e. Butler, Pennsylvania, if
Yeah.
they're protected by the government. And it just
Yeah.
cannot continue to persist. And I hope that Adam Schiff has to do a perp walk as well. So I think we're going to get a word here pretty soon. I think the Supreme Court of Georgia is about to rule on Fani Willis.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I suspect, based on what I know about their nature, is that they will remove her from the case. I don't think will go far enough. She should be removed from the bar because what she has done violates every canon of ethic that I've ever been aware of.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And unfortunately, these state bars are part of the problem. I mean, I had to have my bar license challenged. I had to fight to keep my bar license. I did nothing wrong, but I was accused of lying to the Department of Justice. I was accused of lying to the FBI. None of it was true. I'm licensed in California. I was very worried that the California bar, being as liberal as it is, was going to disbar me unfairly. And in my situation, I will give the California bar credit on this. In my situation, they did not. They found no misconduct on my part and allowed me to keep my license, which, thank you. Like, that's great. That didn't happen for John Eastman. That didn't happen for Rudy Giuliani in New York and DC. It didn't happen for Jeff Clark or Ken Chesborough or, a lot of these other attorneys that did nothing wrong. And so conservative attorneys we really have our back to the wall. Many are faced with the decision, do I fight and probably lose my bar license because the state bars don't want me fighting? Or do I sit back and watch this encroachment on our freedoms where they just destroy the freedoms that we have because no attorneys are willing to fight back? And they're trying to strip conservative attorneys of their bar licenses to ensure that Americans don't have attorneys to represent them and to support them when they try to challenge, political opposition. So we're in very, very dire times, particularly when it comes to licensing of attorneys, because they're outlawing it. I mean, they're outlawing political opposition is what they're doing.
Well, we just interviewed Chief Sun from the Capitol Hill.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Was there on January the 6th.
Mm-hmm.
He has been horribly mistreated, not as bad
Mm-hmm.
as the 1,000 people that were sent to jail for many of them who just peacefully showed.
They were just present. Yeah.
And may have entered peacefully. Like us kid Brandon Fellows, I don't know if you're familiar with his case. Mm-hmm. He entered the Hall of Statues, gave himself a self-conducted tour for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then just walked out. Well, they prosecuted him as an insurrectionist, and he spent 3 years in jail and in really bad conditions. That's crazy. It just seems like these people don't have a conscience. I mean,
they don't.
How do they bring that kind of tragedy into people's lives and sleep at night, or let alone look at themselves in the mirror?
Yeah, well, it's this weird, crazy, it's their religion, right? Their religion tells them that they are morally superior. Their politics is their religion. And they believe that they are morally superior to conservatives. And so because they're morally superior, they have authority. They have a moral authority to destroy the lives of anybody who disagrees with them. It's psychotic. They genuinely believe that. They genuinely believe they're doing God's work. They wouldn't call it God. They would call it, who knows what they would call it, but it's the same thing. It's a religious belief. They believe that they're doing moral work by destroying the lives of innocent people. They're just completely out to lunch.
And they use all this virtuous language. And the fact of the matter is, when you cut through it, it's really that they're doing this stuff purely out of lust for power and personal greed. I've got this notion, and I've put this out on our show now for several weeks, that Donald Trump is intentionally and purposefully going about dismantling the deep state. Mm-hmm. I think chapter 1 is Russia, Russia, Russia. And we've certainly gotten a lot of confirmation for what we thought we already knew. Yeah. And it does directly point to the people that we just talked about. I thought it was really interesting that Hillary Clinton would have said last week that if Donald Trump can bring peace to the Ukraine and Russia, that she might nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize. You think that's trying to incur the president's favor because she knows
Yeah.
she's about to get
Yeah.
lambasted?
I would be kissing his rear end right now too if I were her.
Well, the disappointing thing to me was he said that he might change the way he feels about her after having made that
Oh
statement.
no, he will. He would say that publicly, but
No,
he ain't letting
he
this one
did. I
go.
saw it on television. I think it was tongue in cheek, and I thought it
But
was
that's what I mean. Like
humorous.
that might
Yeah,
be something he says publicly, but I don't think it's something. I don't think he would actually change the way he addresses justice. I don't think he's going to let
I,
her off the hook.
and nor do I. So I think the second phase, this week we just heard that he wants to do away with mail-in ballots and get rid of the damn machines once and for all.
Yeah.
That was the nexus for the $1.2 billion lawsuit that you had to defend against because you dared call out the machines as you saw them, the computers, as I refer to them. Now President Trump is saying he wants to get rid of those devices and mail-in ballots. It leads me to believe that phase two, chapter two of dismantling the deep state, maybe that we'll get some really hard evidence in what happened in 2020 to support his contention that we need to have paper ballots. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we need it, right? We need a lot of exposure of what's been going on behind the scenes in government. I think it's important that the American people can see exactly what's been going on, and have an opportunity to push back against it. Because Donald Trump understands a lot of this inherently because he's been so involved in it and he's been targeted himself and he's run for office. And so he's aware of this probably more acutely than the average American. And so we need to see some exposure of we've seen a lot of the abuses of the mail-in ballots and all of that right now. But it would be really nice to get more exposure on that.
Well, I think chapter three, I hope chapter three, if I'm right, is going to be to unravel and expose what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania on July the 13th during the height of the presidential campaign. I was in Milwaukee then. I was there for the...
Yeah, I was as well, getting ready for the convention.
Yeah, it was a great convention. It was on my bucket list, so I got to go as an alternate for the convention. But I was in my hotel room watching the president in Butler in real time when the shots rang out. I cannot tell you it was the longest minute or 2 minutes I've ever spent in my life. I was certain that they had killed the president.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
I don't think we've been told the truth about what happened there. Mm-hmm. And I want to know who Maxwell Urich is. He's a guy that fought in the Ukraine. He allegedly knows Ralph, the West Palm Beach would-be assassin.
Oh, right.
And he showed up in Portland and Atlanta and DC for the 2019 riots. His van was towed away from Butler on national television moments after the attempted assassination. We were told that it contained ammunition and or explosives. And Maxwell Urich's parents filed a missing persons report on him on July the 14th. Now, this guy had formerly had gauges, and he had taken them out, and he had scars on both ears left by the gauges. Crooks did not have pierced ears, did not have scars on his ears. But I would encourage you to go zoom in on the shooter on the AGR building, and it's pretty obvious that person has scars on his ears. I don't think we've even come close to unraveling Butler, and I want the truth. Why do I want the truth? Well, one, the people that did it need to be accountable, but two, it should never happen again in American politics.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. We're definitely not getting the truth on most of what's happening with the government, that's for sure. And so I'm really hopeful that with this Trump administration, we've already seen a lot of exposure just in the first 6 months of this administration. I hope that it continues and, we get a lot more answers. I love what Tulsi Gabbard did. I love seeing, exposing the Russiagate hoax story, but we need more.
She must be one courageous individual. I mean, what she's doing is just a direct assault on the deep state.
Yeah.
And I do pray for her safety. Well, let's talk about you on, I think it was, what was the date? I think it was in June or July of 24 when you were living not far from Mar-a-Lago, and I guess you got a call. Is that right? That FBI agents had descended on the president's home.
Yeah.
I've always grew up to believe that a man's home was his castle, and like the
Mhm.
king, you could not enter the castle without legitimate, probable cause and a warrant. I guess they had a warrant issued by some liberal judge, but my God, that's when I said they'll stoop to no known lows. What do you think they were after?
I think they were trying to frame the president. They had no probable cause. And I lay everything out in the book. I give you all the text messages, the emails, the communications we had. We had met with them at Mar-a-Lago, them being the Department of Justice and FBI. We met with them at Mar-a-Lago in June of 2022. The raid was in August. So we met with them 2 months before the raid, answered all their questions, said, what do you want to see? There was nothing hidden, nothing, nothing that they were entitled to that we withheld, not at all. And there was just nothing. There was no probable cause for anything. So when the raid happened, the raid was shocking. Um, I think they were just they were on a fishing expedition, trying to find something they could use to incriminate him. I've heard people say that they were looking for Crossfire Hurricane documents to take back. That's certainly plausible as well. But I definitely think they were trying to figure out a way to frame him. And
So,
this is the crazy thing, John. This is what I think the media has missed and what people forget. They didn't find anything. They weren't able to frame him. The whole case was supposed to be in Washington, D.C. I lived in Florida. I worked in Florida. I met with President Trump in Florida. I met with DOJ and the FBI in Florida. I signed for the documents in Florida. Yet when I got subpoenaed to testify, I had to come back here to D.C. to testify. Why? Because the grand jury was here in DC, but they closed it. They closed the grand jury and had to reopen it in Florida because they couldn't get an indictment in Washington, DC. That's how bad it was. You can indict a ham sandwich. I know. I've been indicted. Lots of us have been indicted at this point. They couldn't even get an indictment on Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. So they had to close the grand jury here in D.C., take it down to Florida, and concoct some ridiculous obstruction of justice case that never should have happened. None of it, but they had to do it because they had already raided Mar-a-Lago, and the whole world was staring at them going, why did you raid Mar-a-Lago? So they had to make up some stupid case in Florida that never was going to go anywhere. And everybody knew it wasn't going to go anywhere.
so did you try and interfere at all with the FBI agents when they were there without sufficient cause? I mean, did you like put your hands up and say, no, you can't come in here? Or,
Well, there was like 40 of them and one of me. So no, I mean, I didn't interfere with their
well, they knew
investigation.
you were a Marine, so they knew they had to bring a lot of people.
Well, that's right. They were worried about me. I definitely gave them a hard time. That's for sure. And I give you I was with them for, I don't know, 8 or 9 hours, whatever it was. And there was a lot of conversation with them. All of that's in the book. I, I gave them a hard time for sure. I questioned them. I challenged them. I pushed back. I went as far as I could without getting myself arrested, without doing something to
Sure.
violate the law. But yeah, I definitely gave them a hard time.
Well, and it was so crooked. I mean, even the pictures that we're now famously aware of that were laid out on the floor were not real documents. I've read that they were staged.
No, they were just cover sheets. They were just the cover sheets, and they were cover sheets that the Department of Justice had brought in.
Exactly.
They brought those.
They were staged.
They were staged. It was a staged photo.
Well, I also saw an interesting interview with Peter Navarro today. He has similarly been persecuted and spent 4 months.
Yeah, he went to jail
in prison, and he highlighted that this FBI agent named Giardina was at the middle of everything. He was the one who arrested Peter Navarro. His hands are all over Russia, Russia, Russia. He was on the Mueller team, and he also brought this case around concerning the emollients clause. And I think he is the consummate poster boy for the deep state. And Kash Patel just fired him this week. Are you aware of that? Do you know anything about this guy?
I didn't know that. I was aware that there had been a round of firings that took place earlier on in the administration, which is great. They all need to be fired. Every single one of them needs to be fired. This whole idea, Right. This whole idea, oh, they were just following orders. No, this was unless it was your first day out of the academy. And quite honestly, anybody who's been through the FBI academy should have been able to figure this out as well. But unless it was your first day as an FBI agent, any experienced FBI agent on this should have looked at this and said, this is illegal. This is absolutely illegal. And none of them did. And they all participated. And at the very least, every single one of them needs to be fired or potentially prosecuted.
Well, I so much appreciate your coming on with us today, Christina. I've always been an admirer of yours. Christina was a Marine, as I alluded to. She was in the equivalent. I guess the Marines have a JAG department where you served. Is that right?
Yeah, I was a judge advocate in the Marine Corps. Yes, sir.
Yeah, as was my brother, and in the Air Force. And you've been by President Trump's side for a long time, and you are a consummate loyalist. And now the author of Defiant, Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid, and the left's ongoing lawfare. Where can we get it? When can we get it?
It's available now for pre-sale. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold. If you order it now, it will arrive on your door September 9th. So I got about 2 weeks left before it's like that.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that you're now with Judicial Watch. Tell us briefly about your work there and what Judicial Watch is all about.
Yeah, Judicial Watch, we do great work here. I'm honored to be with this organization. It's basically a government watchdog group, and we expose corruption through getting access to government records, and we litigate for government records. So we've got lots of interesting stuff coming out.
Is there any way we can get accountability for these judges that flagrantly do not follow the law and bring their own political bias to the bench?
Yeah, there is. We need Congress to do their part. Typically the way you get rid of a corrupt judge is through impeachment. But you need a 2/3 majority to convict in the Senate, which we don't have right now.
Not going to happen.
So we need clean elections in order to actually get the majority that we likely have. And judges can be prosecuted for corruption. I think Engeron, or whatever his name is, up in New York, who was just overturned, that penalty was just overturned, the $500 million penalty for President Trump. He should be worried, because that sure looks like an election interference case. He and Letitia James and everybody involved in that, I would be concerned if I were them.
Oh, he's such a likable fellow too. I just feel so bad for him. We did a piece on The Truth in search of $18 million homes in Palm Beach. And we went around and showed all the $18 million houses.
You can't find a parking space for $18 million. Yeah.
And then we showed Tarpon Island, which just sold for $150 million. And then showed Mar-a-Lago, which is 17 acres, 65 room, 100 and something rooms, 62 bedrooms and a ballroom.
With oceanfront on both sides. Like
it's
crazy.
It is crazy. There's no other word for it. And intellectually dishonest. That's the thing that really is so disappointing. Christina Bobb, thank you so much for coming on. So enjoyable to spend some time with you today.
I am such a fan of yours, John. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Have a good rest of your weekend.
You too.